Hello and welcome to Building the Premier Accounting Firm. I'm your host, Roger Connect, and this podcast is dedicated to helping accounting professionals have and build their own successful accounting, bookkeeping, and tax business. It's in this show that we actually discuss topics that range from client onboarding, client relationships, pricing, marketing, sales, and so much more to actually help you build the premier business and get paid what you're worth. Now, with regards to this podcast, each and every episode, I have on guests, experts in their own right as to what it is that they're doing that works and how it is you can implement it in your business. We also, at the same time, explore various things that are pertinent to your success as the leader of your own business. Whether you're a solo entrepreneur or running an accounting firm with staff and employees, this is the podcast for you. So I invite you to subscribe to the podcast and listen to our episodes. Today, we have an amazing guest. It's actually Melanie Macatangay. And Melanie happens to be a CEO and founder of 365 Books Pro. Now, Melanie has 10 years of experience helping small to medium-sized businesses with their accounting and bookkeeping. She holds a Bachelor of Science in Business Administration with a concentration in accounting. She's a certified professional bookkeeper and QuickBooks specialist from Universal Accounting, and she is a Filipino-American and is devoted to providing the best quality financial services to SMBs and SMEs and enjoys helping businesses succeed along the way. Now, 365 Books Pro was established back in 2015 and is an accounting and bookkeeping business processing outsourcing, such as BPO type company work, and helps accounting, bookkeeping, CPA firms and such from small to medium-sized businesses unlock their superior financial strategies to achieve their financial prosperity. Now, in order to do this, her experience is through collaboration with companies in a variety of commercial industries, such as general contractors, real estate agents, automotive, sales, consultative, construction, and many more type industries. She's gotten a solid reputation with business owners in her community, and their offices are actually in National Harbor, Maryland, and in East Asia in the Manila, Philippines. So with that, welcome to the show, Melanie.
Thank you, Roger.
You're so welcome. Now, with this, I do want to start kind of at the beginning because you've got a wonderful past. Give us an idea of what kind of drew you to the accounting profession to get started.
I started when I was 16. I was actually hired by my aunt to do their data entry.
Uh-huh.
And, I was getting paid at that time $20 per a day.
That's pretty good.
Age. It was pretty good, right? So she utilized me because I was so good at data entry, and she utilized me as one of her first bookkeepers in her bookkeeping company. And at the time, I really didn't know what that was. I was just being trained, soaking up the knowledge that she was giving me. And then I finally grew into trying to understand what is bookkeeping and accounting. So that led me into working for real estate agents, CPA firms back in California.
So while you were doing this as a teenager, was it just in your mind at that time a job, or were you really considering it as a profession?
I really enjoyed data entry. I mean, it was soothing for me at that time. It was something that I was, after school, I would go to my aunt's house and be like, hey, do you have anything for me? And I would just sit there, listen to music, and just data enter. So at the time, I didn't think of it as a job. It was more of a getaway hobby. And then it turned into a job to now I decided, oh, this is a career. This is nice.
So when was it that you actually took that shift in thinking this wasn't like a job or something to escape, as you were describing, which I completely understand, by the way, to then saying, hey, maybe I need to pursue some more formal education. I need to actually look at this as a career. Do you remember when that happened? Was this still when you were a teenager? Was it later on in life?
I think it's when I turned 18 and my parents was like, hey, you need to get a job.
Okay.
So when they said that, I was like, oh, a job. Okay. I do have a job, which is data entry. The first thing I did was update my resume, submitted it, and sure enough, Craigslist was really prominent back in the day with finding these type of work, data entry, office desk job, administrative duties. So that's when I realized, once I got into the field, that there is a really good uh, offering out there for people who are bookkeepers and wanted to get into accounting. I love it. I don't think I will change any career or industry. It's a broad industry to be in. Data entry is just one function of the business. There's financial analysis, there's financial preparation, and it's very broad.
Yeah. So you obviously have this decision at age 18. Where did you go from there? Did you then go immediately into additional schooling, or did you find yourself actually working in a company at that point?
So I did a little bit of both. I did a lot of research in what do I really want to do in life. The first thing I did was work for a CPA firm, and that really helped me understand uh, what is what is it all about when it comes to working in the field. And then the second thing I did was I actually went to school for. First, I went to school for billing and coding, because one of the things that I was also doing was billing and coding for my aunt, which is also required data entry.
Mm-hmm.
And then I soon realized what I'm really passionate for was accounting, because I love crunching numbers, reconciling, balancing the balance sheet, the P&L, and just tying up those discrepancies. So I mean, there was a lot of soul searching there in my early 20s
Uh-huh.
before I really made a decision that this is it.
So I'm curious, what led you to then start your own business? I mean, if we jump forward a little bit, you eventually take that leap and start your own accounting business. What caused you to go out on your own?
So I stumbled upon universal accounting when I was doing a lot of researching about certifications, how I can get my knowledge enhanced, improve my resume so I can get more work. And back in 2015 is when I took the universal accounting course for bookkeeping certification.
Uh-huh.
Um, then after I finished the course, I I really wasn't wanting to own my own business. At some point, I knew I wanted to own my business, but I didn't want it that early on. But after taking and finishing the training and the courses, uh, it, I I was like, wow, this is amazing. There's gap in the industry. I can help business owners um, make their business profitable, and taking the course was an eye opening for me because it made me feel that I have something that I can offer in the market that would be a solution to small business owners. So that's where I started. That's why we established 365 Weeks Pro in 2015.
I love that story simply because it was something that you didn't necessarily intend to do, but obviously got the confidence to go ahead and start on your own. And that's a huge step.
Yes, yes. And that was the help of your coaches.
Well, thank you. They actually do a lot to help people have that confidence. And once you have the confidence, I think you're a little bit more willing to try and do things that you didn't otherwise want to do, simply because you're willing to take that risk. And obviously, as accounting professionals, sometimes we're a little bit risk adverse. And so it takes a little bit of a leap of faith. And you obviously took it and have done amazingly well since then.
Thank you so much. Yeah. When I first quit my job, my full time job, the first thing that my parents told me was like, "What are you doing?" and hindsight, I think at the time I was working with the sales coach Timothy,
Uh-huh.
or I can't remember his name, but it was some time ago. And working along the side with him, I was able to obtain, the first 10 clients. And that led me to really, okay, this is definitely working. This is working well than I thought.
That is awesome. So, describe briefly what your company does, just as the accounting business that it is.
So we are a business process outsourcing company. We offer support to accounting, bookkeeping, and CPA firms. We provide staff augmentation, ad hoc services, temporary staffing needs to support firms' growth. Um, we are your what we call is your third party provider in the back end processing. So if you have any operational woes, you can call us.
Now, this is fascinating because this is really the core of the conversation that I was hoping to have today, because a lot of the conversations I'm having now revolve around the fact that a lot of the accounting firms are struggling to get staff. They are growing, they're taking on clients, and the thing that's becoming the bottleneck now isn't the growth in the sense of acquiring business clients. Mm-hmm. It's actually having the staff and the means to take care of those needs. And so what you're doing is obviously meeting that need. You're obviously helping accounting, CPA firms, tax practices, and so forth address certain needs that they've got. So let's kind of address how that's done. First of all, define what a BPO is.
So a BPO, it's been going on for the last decade. A lot of big four companies, they also have a BPO in East Asia. Now, BPO is a business process outsourcing that provides flexibility by hiring another company to handle certain functions or aspect of their business processes or organization. It can help your business focus on growth and save money. So in a nutshell, if you require and you're looking for, a virtual assistant to call for your clients, follow up with your clients, we offer that. And any ad hoc services such as bookkeeping, staff accountants, accounts receivable, or AP processor, that's what we also focused on. So growing or finding those resources, we can mitigate those risks for you. Because as what you mentioned, staff and looking for staff right now is the hardest part. There's going to be some cost, time, and due diligence, and that cost can be up to 3 to 4 months to find a really great staff. But what if we can tell you that we have the staff available within no time at your needs, and they're available? So BPO processing really gives you that flexibility to expand your business.
Now, one of the things that I think all of us consider when we're hiring new employees is we've got to find the location to perhaps put them. We've got this idea of buying a desk or a computer or a chair. It's maybe the profile login fees that we're paying to give them access to different programs that we're using. So there's a variety of costs and expenses on top of being a W-2
Absolutely.
employee. We've got the related taxes and so forth that we're going to be paying. But here's the question. Since the pandemic has started, remote workers has become a lot more plausible. Either it's the local people that used to come into the office now working from home, or even more plausible, it's somebody that we technically interview online and then set up to work remotely, and we never even have them come to the office. They may even live away from the office and can't even come in another state or something. So I think all of a sudden in the last few years, it's become much more acceptable to have a staff, a culture that is more remote and distant. How do you feel that that's opened the door for more people to entertain the idea of offshore accounting services, taking someone and working from someplace outside of the United States?
I mean, that's a really great question. What we've done here is quite different. We enhance the technology side and work with Microsoft Azure to make sure that they are seamlessly within your operation. So great example is that the staff member who will work under your company will essentially work within your operations hours, and then also white label any of your emails. So in a nutshell, it feels like they are within your operational office, and they're available to you and dedicated to you 100%. Now, the difference with our staff is that they can communicate at any time during U.S. Standard Time. We have a DC number or local number that we assign to them. So if your client would like to speak with the staff member, they can give them a call. The benefit of that too, as well, is the technology side that we've implemented, using Outlook, Teams, Virtual, Microsoft Azure. The security is the most prominent that we've taken and adhered to. I cannot stress that enough, because even though you have your laptop, you're working from home, we want to make sure that they are working in a secured environment, um, versus logging into a regular laptop, and there's no firewall there, that sort of IT aspect. Um, so what we've done for the staff members to be in fruition with any firms is allowing them to uh, utilize the virtual environment. Uh, any of these tools that we've had implemented has helped our business as well. So that's from monitoring the employee, that enhances productivity as well, and making sure that they are doing the work and producing the work that you want them, and then working along the side within your organization. So I guess embracing technology is really, the answer.
Well, what I'm hearing you describe is, first of all, you spoke of a person being dedicated. That's always a question that I've had asked, is whether or not it's a specific individual that becomes kind of involved or integrated into the business model so that there's someone familiar we're working with, or is it a staff of people that we're just sending work to and it's just getting done and we're just not really aware of who's taking care of it? You did address technology. There is quite a bit of a technological advancements that have taken place recently that have facilitated this. You've also addressed the fact that the work hours are similar so that they're available to communicate with and interact with. But one thing that I don't recall you mentioning is there's a lot of times a question about having a safe room or a clean room environment. And that's generally something that's in this industry a common thing. What can you share about that?
Safe room environment and clean environment. I mean, we have never had any issues in regards to that. We always have what we call as the do's and don'ts when you're in a virtual meeting. Make sure you tidy up your living room before you go on a live room meeting with the client. We've addressed that quite numerous times with all of our staff in East Asia, and they take that very seriously because it's a presentation of the firms. So, given that policy, everyone is always tidy, on time when it comes to joining in a meeting. And everyone in our staff is very respectful, especially knowingly that this is a firm's client. They take it very serious and take pride in making sure that their face doesn't look tired, just they woke up or something and came out of their bed and joining into a meeting. They don't have paperwork on their desk. So the policy, what I can share with you is that we have do's and don'ts. And the do's is that make sure that if you are going to join in the meeting and you're going to be virtually live and presentable to the client, is that you are wearing a professional attire. Make sure that you don't have any background noises in the back end. If you have kids that are running around, that's a big no-no, or dogs barking. The biggest benefit and advantages that we've seen is that because they are, the staff is 13 hours ahead, it's evening there. So there's no noise. I think that's one of the things that we enjoy the most. There's no noise at night while they're working. And then the second thing is that we make sure that the staff are ready before they jump on a call with any clients on a virtual setting.
Now, you mentioned clients. I've had this opportunity where I've worked where a lot of these individuals that are working remotely actually are back office, meaning they don't ever interact with the client. And then you have the opportunity to, in your business, actually include them and involve them with forward-facing activities where they may actually interact with clients. And so you're saying these people are actually prepared for and trained to have that kind of interaction. Is that what you're saying?
Absolutely. Yeah. We've tested 3 or 4 staff with our training, and this is something that we're a little bit different and unconventional versus our competitors. Is we train the staff first before we assign them to any CPA firm. We make sure that they're knowledgeable enough of what the firm's expectations is: professionalism, attire, communication, timeliness, deliverables, all that 9 yard when it comes to just like a firm would want if they were to hire somebody right there in their office.
Yeah. So one of the things that I'd like to do is maybe address some of the misunderstandings about remote outsourcing, this BPO type model. What are some of the common misconceptions that people have as they're considering actually working with a remote business like your own, trying to complement the work services that they're providing to their clients? What are some of the common questions that people ask that you can maybe address right now?
I mean, the first question they always ask us is, "How's your security? How are you guys able to work on clients' information? Is it secured?"
And why
Absolutely.
why do you think the security is a common question?
I believe because you have a lot of information transpiring between your email, share drive, your your client sending you their tax return, their social security information, bank information. I think that raises a lot of concern. So,
Hmm.
I mean, yes, true, very true. But given the fact that the security that we've implemented with the environment that we have, it's very hard to, hack,
Yeah.
because we've done a lot of research in what would work best for East Asia and USA to deliver that type of process, or to adhere and facilitate that process. So we've worked with Microsoft to ensure that the virtual desktop that they have has a lot of these restrictions. They can't stream Netflix, they cannot import export, they can't print your document, they cannot copy and paste, infringe, or tampering of data. Last but not least, the biggest thing that we've implemented in security wise is employee monitoring. So every 10 minutes, their screen is screenshotted. So we share that with the CPA firm as well for, their peace of mind.
Interesting. So one of the things that I know comes up quite often is in this idea of outsourcing the work internationally is the idea of, but they're not American. I'm unable to say that this is done in America, kind of a thing.
Correct.
How do you address that kind of a question?
I, it's a good question. I think we have to address the fact that, Filipinos are actually Americanized. We have a treaty with the Philippines government, and they are they speak fluent English. Matter of fact, in Manila, if you go to Manila, they do speak well English. They actually write and speak well English better than I do because it's required by the government there. But in terms of, this is not done in America, made in America. My comment to that is we have to embrace diversity in our organization. And, whether it is not done in America or out of America, a lot of our processes can be streamlined, and it can definitely help grow the businesses here. Now, everybody pays taxes. I pay taxes. They also pay taxes. And there is some benefits to working with a company that's BPO. One thing of that, as I already mentioned, is that you can streamline your process, your productivity, and have somebody handle it that can take up this role at a fraction of a cost. But the stigma with, hey, they're not American, they probably don't know and don't speak that. I think that's all gibberish, and things have changed over a decade. BPO companies, like I mentioned earlier, Big Four in East Asia, they have KPMG, they have PwC. So
That's right.
it's not. I think my suggestion to people who think that way would open up your mind to it. Do a little bit more research before you let the stigma kind of take over your decision making,
Yep.
because you're going to miss out on an opportunity that's changing right now, and it has been changing in the last decade.
So just to kind of fill in the gap on this, and I think this might be appreciated by the listeners, is Our company, Universal Accounting, we looked at this probably 10 years or so ago, where we were at that time kind of entertaining, does technology permit us to do certain things? And we had one employee that chose to work from Guam for just over a month period of time. And we found that it worked flawlessly with a VoIP phone system and secured internet and so forth. That worked well. And then we started as a company experimenting with people working around the United States. And we had them work in various states and had that work flawlessly and do well. Now today we have people working as they travel, go on vacation. But my point is only recently have we started testing, working with virtual assistants and such. So I technically have one that is out of Africa and Kenya, working excellent for us, and been very impressed with that. We have some others that also work from the Philippines, and we've had a lot of success with them. And so this whole idea of using people that are international does have its merit. We're all aware of people working for various larger companies for more than a decade, and that's not unheard of to outsource it that way. But because of the employment and hiring shortage that we're having here in the United States, this has become not just a viable solution, but probably more than anything, a necessity for many businesses to actually address their growth needs, just to find the quality skill sets they're looking for. So here's a question that I've also had come up quite a bit when we've looked at outsourcing, is the quality of the people. Oftentimes it comes up that you can get very, very reasonably excellent skill sets, such as CPAs internationally, that you perhaps couldn't afford as a skill to hire in-house here in the United States. What could you share about the quality of skills and individuals that you have access to there in the Philippines?
Thank you for that question. I actually, when we first started interviewing last year in the Philippines, we were really quite surprised at the level of expertise and experience and knowledge that CPAs have there. Not only that most of them have worked at the Big Four, that they actually understand what GAAP, GAS, GAS, and most of them have worked for a lot of international foreign companies and corporations. So given the experience and expertise that they have, I think it's well above what we expected. And a lot of the CPA, the accountants, staff accountants that we have interviewed in the past, they're keen to working for a viable firm and a company is very much required. They actually Filipinos are very picky when it comes to employers. So, they don't just get hired by an employer because, I want to be an accountant. They provide sophisticated experience, and the reference checked is taken very seriously there. So when it comes to experience, we really hone in on how many years in experience and what specifically in the functions of accounting that they do, because accounting is very broad. So they are required to do a test with us before they are onboarded to show their knowledge. Did they actually do bank reconciliation? Did they do financial analysis? Did they sit down with the board members of that corporation? So we were really surprised. And then on the same token, the cost analysis to hire a CPA there versus here is quite different on the cost. Currency exchange is not one-to-one, but there's some savings. Now, if you were to hire a CPA, I'm not saying don't hire a CPA here. I'm saying that CPA here are just much more expensive. But there's also CPAs there that are experienced and affordable. You can have a CPA that's can do the full spectrum of financial analysis, KPIs, and do that for you on your behalf, and execute the work product to your client for a fraction of the cost. And the salary can be based off on $40,000 and below. And, that's inclusive all of their benefits package. So it's a very competitive resources that what Philippines has. And I think it's always what they say, it's a hidden gem.
Yeah, my experience working with people that are international is that not only do you get a good value for the skill set that you're acquiring, but at the same time, and this isn't to speak poorly of people here in the United States. I think this might sound worse than I'm going to portray it, but I have been very impressed with how proud these individuals are of the opportunities that they're afforded when they work for an international company, one from the United States. The VAs that I work with, the people that I have working from Africa and in the Philippines, the thing that impresses me most is they are quite honored and proud and are eager to keep the position that they have. And they actually tend to put forth their best foot and try and make everything the best it can be and see what they can do to please us as the employer. So it's an interesting experience when you get the right person through interviewing. They're quite honored to actually have the position available to them and work for an American company. So at the end of the day, I've been quite pleased and surprised with the work ethic that I've at least experienced so far. So maybe I'm tainted because of the successes I've had, but by all means, it's been a wise decision for us because the challenge we faced in the last year is we cannot hire individuals. And so this has become that much needed solution, at least as an option for us. Now, for you, I am curious. Obviously, we've kind of looked at your history, how you got into the accounting profession, starting your accounting business, working with businesses and doing their accounting, and then now moving into this new business where you're offering offshore accounting services and working with accounting businesses to help them have access to these competent individuals in the Philippines. So I'm kind of curious, what did you learn from all this experience?
I learned a lot. I actually really enjoyed learning where the industry is going. It's a moving fast industry, and I think there's always changes. Like what we discussed in our last discussion is that you have to adapt to the changes, where the market goes. Business owners right now, they have the same headache, is that, how can I afford my CPA firm if their fee is high? And same problem with the CPA firm. How can I afford resources if the workforce is expensive and I cannot afford one resource if I'm a new business owner? So I've learned that you kind of have to adapt and keep providing that solution to both as a service offering. And this is the best way. And this is why we really change our business offering, is we saw more needs with the CPA firm. At the same token, we were already, offering that to businesses, and we were profitable in there. But we saw a lot of needs for business in the CPA firm or in the finance industry that need this help. So I think the biggest learning curve for me too was really understanding where the bottlenecks are for both parties, business owners and the owner of the CPA firm. Because I was one of them. My firm is not a CPA firm. We're just, bookkeeping and accounting. But I was really one of them that when you have growth, when you try to expand, you hit that peak, and which is, okay, do I hire staff or do I get more sales? Which one do I do?
Yeah.
Right?
Well, you don't want to be limited by your ability to grow because you just can't find the right staff. That becomes very frustrating because then it's an internal issue that's basically holding you back from that next step in your business growth. So I totally understand that. I am kind of curious with regards to your business working with the Philippines. Do you travel there on a regular basis? Have you been going back and forth, especially with the current situation as it is with travel?
I will be traveling there in April, so that would be my first time traveling to the Philippines. But everything has been done remotely, and we have staff there that's taking care of the office space and adhering to our staff there, which is actually quite nice. So I'm really excited to go there in April.
That is wonderful. How long are you going to be staying there?
I'll be there probably for 3 weeks. I think that's enough time to be away.
Oh, that's probably plenty of time. So, with regards to the Philippines, you mentioned Manila, that it's there, that the offices are there. Do you have people outside of Manila that are working, or is it pretty much centralized?
Absolutely. Where we're forecasting to be with this is to also offer many resources globally. I think with what we have in terms of resources and hiring resources, there's really unlimited opportunity. So right now we're really focused in the central Manila, and then we are hiring and onboarding someone in Mindanao, which is 7 of Philippines, and we've hired somebody in Batangas City, which is a little bit 2-3 hours south of Philippines. So
Okay.
remote work is very welcome in our organization as long as they are very tech savvy and understand how to utilize this environment.
Okay. And obviously, this podcast has probably been very informational or informative, let's say, to the listeners, simply because I think we naturally, as a business owner, just presume that, first of all, if we want it done right, we have to do it ourselves. And so it takes time to become comfortable delegating. But usually that starts by hiring people and not necessarily micromanaging them, but having them nearby that you can watch and observe that they're working so that you can see that it's getting done. In the recent year or two, we've really seen this change to remote working. We're trusting, we're expecting, we've got to manage based on expectations, and at the same time, I think manage based on deliverables. We've got to have metrics to more comfortably manage the people. Now we're talking about remote going beyond the United States and outsourcing it to where we're not necessarily employing the people as a W-2, but we're having this remote worker relationship. So I'm just going to ask, what advice do you have to firms to have them be more efficient and really kind of leverage both technology and opportunity to build their businesses?
That's a really good question, and just like how I built my business is automation. Streamline your processes and understand how you want that process to be cloned or implemented across the board. There's this great book that I read 2-3 years ago, Clone Yourself by Jeff Hilderman. And it talks about your dream team, you're automating your business, how you can do that. If you were to step away from your business for 2 weeks, would it crumble or would it still be sustainable? My biggest advice is pinpoint where the inefficiency first. If you already have your business, try to understand your production. If you're a one-man person, how do you produce that? Are you efficient? Can you actually clone that process? And if you can't, then maybe there's some things to change in there. And the second thing is, if you're planning to hire a new staff member to join your team, whether it's outsourced or internal, writing down the processes and understanding the core responsibility of that new staff will help you streamline it. Because if you just delegate and give them work and there's no value to the end process, then you're just wasting time and money.
I think that advice so far about automation is excellent. I think that's a perfect place to start. So much of what we do is in our heads. We're in a position where I just know intuitively what to do, and I just do what I have always done. And so it's kind of habitual, but it's not recorded. It's not automated. We don't have a process that's yet systematized that we can delegate to someone else. So automation is a perfect place to start. So I think that's the natural thing to then ask, what about workflow? What can we do to improve our workflow and be more efficient, I guess?
Workflow is always a challenge because you have to kind of change as your business grows as well. You cannot have a stagnant workflow that's implemented from 4 or 5 years ago. So understanding and identifying your recurring versus non-recurring process in your business is key. For us, what we were really good at was underlining what what inefficiency the bookkeepers has. Was it because the client was not providing it on time, or the bookkeeper is just not understanding where to take the information from? So the recurring processes is something that your team can get used to. This is something that they can do month to month, week to week, bi-weekly. Non-recurring process can be something like once a quarter. So identifying those two distinctive process and separating those two and delegating it to one team and another team, making separate roles and duties for a team, that can really make your workflow much more efficient than versus having one band person do everything at once and not separating them. It can get very convoluted very fast. So, in our business itself, we have one person that calls and follows up with the client. We have automation where we send recurring reminders to the client. Then we have our staff members that's also sending another client request and making sure they're going through the information that's been submitted on a monthly basis. And then there's the third person who's really doing the grunt work in the back end. So it takes one process to compile the information from a client, but streamlining that and making sure that eliminating extra steps for the client and your team can really make your workflow much more simpler and simpler to implement and execute.
Perfect. So obviously we've got automation, we've got workflow. These things are leading us to be more efficient. I'm curious, do you have a particular project management software that you find as a platform is useful to achieve this?
Yeah, absolutely. Canopy Tech is one great tool. We love and kind of am married to Canopy Tech.
Okay, Canopy. Yep, familiar with them.
Yeah, and when they first started, they didn't have all the bell and whistles that they have now. So they've implemented new features in the practice management that you can take. You can run with it and do whatever you want in terms of recurring reminders, following up with clients, security of uploading their information. So that's always our go-to. And the second thing is your and by the way, Canopy Taxes has this great integration with QuickBooks now and your calendar. So it's like all in one platform. It's great to manage your tasks, what's pending. The other tool that I always recommend for our team in terms of communication is Teams, Microsoft Teams. Communication within your team is so important, especially if you're working remote. And things can get a little bit haywire and convoluted if you have multiple communication line, whether it's chat, phone call, text, messages. So eliminating all the other platforms and just using one can really help you and your team. Having one chat box as well, so that everyone if you have 4 staff members or 3 staff members, you want them to be able to be in the same page. So that chat box, other than Teams, there's Slack, there's what do you call the other one? Tamely or Monday.com.
Okay.
So all of those tools are very affordable and very much available to anybody that wants to use it.
So I'm curious, having mentioned each of those different tools or programs, are your people there trained specifically in those, or are they trained on them as needed based on the client's need?
So they're trained in those. We actually, which is something that I love talking about, Trainwall.com. So Trainwall.com, this platform started, I think, about 3-4 years ago. And you can put all your training modules in there, create your policies, your process in there, and then you can train your staff remotely. And they can even bookmark the policy and procedures that you want them to follow. So, I mean, that's the beauty of what we've implemented here, is that anybody that we onboard has the same expectations and same process, and can be trained throughout the process, even if they're assigned to a CPA firm. And last but not least is if the firm requires, hey, I want that person to work via Gmail. that's actually great news because in the Philippines, Gmail is their number one, email users. Their
Uh-huh.
Philippines love Gmail. um, and in terms of other tools, let's say like if you want them to understand Drake software or tax software, we can certainly do that. We're actually a partner of Drake software. So it's a lot of training that is required, but we offer that training for the CPA firm.
Okay. Now, regarding working remotely, you gave some advice earlier. I mean, obviously, having a clean environment and looking professional and so forth. But I'm curious, is there any other advice you'd give working remotely that anybody could apply with any employer or maybe even client that they're working with that's not on site, that they're visiting face to face? Any other advice or suggestions regarding the working remotely to build a relationship with the client, to build a relationship with the employee? Any thoughts there?
Yeah, I think, that's a two-part question for me. The first thing is building relationship with your client is the biggest thing. Don't ever drop that ball. Uh, because without your client, you won't have your team. So make sure you give them a call. Just pick up your phone, 30 minutes, 20 minutes of your day and just say, hey, how are you doing? As if you're dropping by to their office. A surprise call is always welcome, probably. If they're busy, leave them a voicemail. And if it's something that you want to talk to them about outside of work, hey, I want to invite you to this networking, it doesn't hurt to give them a call and check in on them. Nowadays, even though you're remotely working, it feels like, hey, I don't have to talk to them. Great. But what I will tell you is building your relationship with your client is number one, is a number one priority in your business. And the second question you mentioned is that how do we keep our team, engaged working remotely? It's quite funny enough, we actually implemented what we call as 365 Books Pro Connect within our organization. So we hold like once a month team building virtually. This can be like a fun game, talk about what they did, work-life balance, something to engage the staff members that, hey, we're still thinking of you. You still work at 365 even though you're working remotely. These are things that you can share with us. Allowing them to build that culture within the organization remotely is very, very much viable to having them communicate with one another. Because, when you're texting, when you're in that chat, it can get dry because it's all about work. But if you build that team once a month and you tell them, hey, join us for this team building remotely, let's talk about, any feedback from the staff members regarding training, give them some collaborativeness. Feedback from them would be great as well.
This has been great. I appreciate the insights into this idea of working with people remotely. I like the idea of this BPO model that we've heard of before and outsourcing our needs because of the current employment crisis that we're experiencing, so many of us. So this has been a great conversation, but I want to go back to something that I think is a great place for us to maybe end. And it's, if you could look back at your 18-year-old self, your 20-year-old self, who, when you were just employed and working, not even with the interests of necessarily starting your business, what would you say to that younger self of you, having experienced and gone through this journey that you have? What advice would you give them?
That's a really tough one because I've never really thought about that. But thank you for making me think. I think I'd give my young self, 18-year-old, an advice to keep going because there's more that you can do in this life itself. Whether it's helping people and giving people opportunities outside of the U.S., and just be always be helpful. And I guess that not to worry, everything will be fine.
That's great advice. I'm curious, what has having your own business, working as an accounting professional, doing the work that you do, what has it afforded you? How do you think your life's been blessed and changed because of it?
Oh, I always say I've never missed a work since I was 18 years old.
Uh-huh.
Opportunities were always there for me. So even the pandemic, when things shut down, it was always busy for us. I think I've been very blessed, and I'm super grateful enough to be in part of this industry, and allowing me to, your team for helping me back then, answering my questions and concerns regarding training and sales. But I would say that given the opportunity, I'm super blessed. I'm super thankful and grateful being here today.
Well, thank you. I really appreciate that. So I'm going to end with this question. What does the word freedom mean to you then?
Oh man, freedom. Freedom. It's a tricky word because I think people use it very loosely. It can mean different things to different people because it's based off on preferences. Freedom can mean more money, more time. For me, right now it means work-life balance. That is freedom for me. That allowing me to, essentially work with other business owners and also work with my staff, but also being able to take a step back and reflect what has been accomplished and what has been achieved is freedom for me.
Perfect. I agree with you. I think it's sometimes too loosely used, but it does mean so much to so many of us, especially as we're each running and operating our own businesses. There's something to be said for working hard and having some of these blessings in our lives. So first of all, thank you for all this so far. I'm going to kind of recap what it is we've discussed. And then Melanie, I'm going to come back to you for a summary, kind of a final thought, if I can, and see what it is that you'd like to share as a final thought. But as a final, or not as a final, but as an offer related to today's discussion, I do want to invite everyone to go to the episode description. And in the episode description, I'm going to have some information there regarding part of this conversation, which is, first of all, at 365 Books Pro, they have some information that you can take a look at, and also some promotions that you can take advantage of being a listener of the podcast. One of them that they've got running currently right now is the first month of services are free, which is a phenomenal offer to give this a chance for you to test and see what this is all looking like, and see what it is that you can do to leverage this type of a service to, in fact, grow your business and get out of some of the challenges you're facing as you're perhaps trying to find and hire quality staff. The other thing that I'd like to invite you to see is there in the episode description, you're going to find how you can get a free copy of 2 books that are must reads. It's every accounting professional should have these as part of their business. It's one that is titled In the Black, 9 Principles to Make Your Business Profitable. It is a how-to guide for you to work on your business and actually implement very specific things to ensure that you're profitable each and every month, but also Red to Black in 30 days. It's a small business accountant's guide to quick turnaround, something you can do to actually follow as a step-by-step outline of what it is you can do to address the most common issue that small business owners face, which is cash flow management. And with that, actually take their business and do as the book describes, take them from being in the red to in the black, and then obviously staying there within the black, 9 principles to make the business profitable. 2 must-have books for you to read and use as you're working with your clients. Now, as a summary of our conversation today, one of the things that I was excited to discuss is this whole idea of outsourcing. The BPO, you hear of it. It's somewhat foreign, but it's definitely becoming more common, especially after having gone through the pandemic as we did, where people were able to now work remotely. It's become more familiar. It's more comfortable. And I think a lot of people have adapted. And this is just that further extension of what it is that we can do when we're faced with these challenges of finding the staff we need to grow our businesses, to take those handcuffs off and actually look to hire very competent people remotely. And by outsourcing to them, leverage their skills and abilities to help grow the business and take care of our clients. There is a tried and proven process to that. And with Melanie, we were able to discuss what that looks like, what it is to actually outsource and work with these people. What does that experience look like? What is it to take the work that we're doing that's automated, the workflows that we have, and delegate them to someone else? And how can that be achieved? She shared with us some excellent insights as to various software programs that she utilizes in her own business and with her company, so as to help us see what we can do to leverage technology better. She mentioned such things as Canopy and some other ones that I'm sure you you found to at least take good notes of so that you can reach out to? And maybe what I can do is put a mention of those in the notes or in the episode description as well. So the last thing I want to do is just thank her for being on the show. I think her success actually going from not just being an accountant, a data entry person, to starting her own business, thriving like she did, and then seeing the need that exists in accounting where we're just basically all struggling to find that competent skill set to now be able to offer outsourced services is a phenomenal leap on her part. As a businesswoman, she's accomplished so much, so proud of what she's been able to achieve. And it all stems from the confidence that she was able to get early on in her career to realize that she can, in fact, be her own boss. And I think that's just amazing. So, Melanie, what are some final words that you'd like to share?
Final words for any listeners, if you are considering starting your firm, keep going. Your first year, you're getting started. Don't give up. If you don't have your first client, don't give up. You can do it. Nothing comes easy. It's always hard work. So just keep going. And if you are utilizing universal accounting training and courses, I can guarantee you that it has worked for me. I've always said that, and I've always been a true believer of their program. So utilize it, implement it, keep trying, don't give up. And if you do get there, congratulations, and, give us a shout.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Melanie. So what I'm going to do here is just kind of mention a few things more. There is in the episode description some additional free resources that you can take advantage of being listeners of the podcast. And I also want to invite you to join us at GrowCon. GrowCon is a live conference event for accounting professionals to help you work on your business and actually implement the very things that we talk about here to ensure that you're doing the things confidently and competently to, in fact, have the premier accounting business in your area. So check out what it is that we have there for you about GrowCon. We also want you to listen to our other episodes and subscribe to the podcast. This is intended to give you each week different things that you can do in your business to actually become that premier accounting firm, as I've already mentioned. Now, if you'd like more information about this and other principles, things that you can do in your business, be sure to also check us out at universalaccountingschool.com or give us a phone call at 801-265-3777. And always remember this, accounting success is universal. Why? Because if it's about accounting, it is universal. Take care and have a great day.